Hey everyone, I'm Lorraine Driscoll, founder of Building Better Brains, and I wanted to hop on to share something that I know a lot of you are dealing with, and that is a kid who hates homework, maybe resists going to their tutor, doesn't want to go to school, doesn't want to sit down and read, and sometimes it doesn't always look like a battle. It did for Brody's mom, but sometimes it's just resistance, it's silliness, it's taking forever to get things done. It's just, things drag on. I can't tell you how many moms I talk to who say, if he would just sit down and read or whatever, we could be done in 20 minutes, but it takes like an hour and a half. And then we're angry at each other and somebody's crying or somebody's yelling. It's something similar with tutoring and so forth. And this is basically what one mom, Brody's mom, told me, is that every time it's time to read or do tutoring, it's an absolute battle, to the point where she's just like dreaded that part of the night. And she's like, I'm sure Brody does as well. So if you're struggling with this, then you want to tune in. And really what this boils down to is what was going on with Brody. It was so much more than needing extra practice. What Brody really needed was something that went way beyond what tutoring can do. And I talk about tutoring a lot, and I always want to be clear, we absolutely need tutors. I had a tutor for my daughter last year at one point for math. Sometimes we just need someone to fill in the gaps and explain things differently. But when there is a learning disability in which there is issues like visual processing disorder, auditory processing disorder, which if you've had a psychoed evaluation, you might know these terms already. It's really, really common with learning disorders or disabilities. In fact, it's a hallmark of learning disabilities, especially the auditory processing disorder in relation to dyslexia. What it really boils down to is dyslexia, we know, is a right brain overdevelopment, a left brain delay. The left brain happens to be where the auditory system is. And so that area is weak, and we need to exercise that area. We can't try and make the brain do something that it's not yet able to do, because what's going to happen is kids are going to get frustrated. They're going to shut down. Brody, to me, was a really smart kid. He was letting mom know this is not working. And also he was shutting down because it was making him feel poorly about himself. And it is natural human instinct to always self-preserve. And every time Brody would go to tutoring or sit down and read, he was always making the same mistakes. He wasn't making a whole lot of progress. And so he was super, super frustrated, and sitting down and reading with mom or with a tutor or whomever was always making him, it was always a confirmation to him or reminding him of what he could not do. And in his words, he said, I felt dumb every time he did it. So why would you let me know in the comments, what are you really not good at and you avoid absolutely, completely, and totally with all your heart because you're like, it's just not my area of strength, right? We all have those things. Unfortunately, when it comes to things like reading, we can't just avoid these things. We have to learn how to overcome these struggles, because I always say that, like learning to read today is like how, hunting was for people thousands of years ago. It's absolute survival. So long and the short of it is, poor auditory processing equals poor phonemic awareness. That was a huge piece of the puzzle with Brody. And it's just not something that we can address through academics, through instruction, good reading practices and so forth. It's all about right action at the right time. We can't teach the brain better phonemic awareness if it doesn't have the wiring to be able to hold those, teachings or skills or whatever. What is needed are brain body exercises that stimulate the growth of brain connections in the weak areas. So the bottom line is that practice will not address the visual processing issues. You need to do exercises and so forth. And I will be talking about that, by the way, next week on Friday, different exercises to get you started and so forth. Join my free training. I will put the link in the comments below after. But we need exercises. And this is why Brody continued to struggle with tutoring and practice and all that type of stuff, because he didn't have what was needed in order for him to develop good reading skills and to read fluently. So for the first few months when I started working with Brody, what we did is we focused on exercises that made it easier for him to read. So exercises that would retrain his auditory system and develop stronger connections there. He had visual processing issues as well. So we worked on exercises that would improve that. We did not do any reading, much to his happiness. Now, it doesn't mean we didn't do any reading or he didn't have to do that at, later on in the program, but his words to me were, you mean you're going to teach me how to read without reading? And I said, yeah, I guess that's a really good tagline, but it's not quite as simple as that. So the number one thing we looked at before we did exercises, we looked at deficiencies. We looked at his gut health. We looked at his toxic load. All of those things needed to be addressed with him. Once I was confident that we had enough fuel for his brain to do the things we needed it to do to function optimally, then we were able to do the brain body exercises. So then we did the vision exercises, by the way. We do not start with that. We've got to make sure the body is able to, that the ocular motor function is solid, so that when we retrain the eyes, everything is going to hold and stick. And that's why sometimes people don't get good results with vision therapy. Vision therapy is fantastic, but again, it's that right action at the right time. So we did that. And then we went on to building phonemic awareness. And then we went on to reading exercises. So you see there's that right action at the right time, that whole system in terms of what the brain needs first, then next. And again, I'm going to be walking you through that three-step system next Friday if you join my free training. So Brody increased 11 reading levels in 9 weeks. And he had been in tutoring for 16 months. So, this is what happens when you address weak connections, you strengthen the areas that are underdeveloped, you nourish the brain, you get the biochemistry of the brain working optimally with natural things like food, addressing gut health, all of that type of stuff. We're no longer asking Brody's brain to do something that he really didn't have the connections for. So let me know in the comments below, what have you tried? Because I know a lot of people who follow me, whether it's on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, are doing good things. Some of you are in like amazing tutoring programs like OG or Barton or Wilson. Some of you are doing OT. Let me know in the comments below, what are the things that you are doing? How is that going? And what do you feel like could be a next step? I would love to hear what you're trying and so forth. It always gives me ideas, and tell me what's not working so that I can, do some more videos, maybe even answer you and so forth and give you some further insight. So if you do want to learn more about my brain body approach, the talk says dyslexia, but it really is overall the approach that I use with ADHD as well as learning disabilities. So join that. Sign up link will be in the comments below, and it's the three-step system that addresses the root cause that I use in my program. So thanks for watching, everyone. Take care and have a great day.